Welcome back to another video. I would guess that if you've come across this video, you're interested in bringing technology into your classroom. But have you ever found with your busy teacher schedule, you just don't have time to experiment with all these new tools? If so, this is the video for you. I've gathered my top 5 tech tips that you can incorporate into your classroom instruction in 5 minutes or less. Let's get right into it. In 2022, you're probably familiar with the idea of QR codes. They're useful little barcode images that have embedded links in them, so you can scan them with a phone camera. This gives you quick access to information without having to share a long URL. You may not realize it, but QR codes have actually been around for a really long time. They were invented in 1994, before we even had cell phones with cameras that could scan them. QR codes have experienced a resurgence in popularity during the pandemic. They're primarily used in the food industry. Restaurants use them to have patrons check in for contact tracing, or they can also use them to display a digital version of their menu to replace the paper copy. They're also an amazing tool to use in teaching, and making them is super simple. There are loads of online tools that you can use to generate a QR code, but my favorite is qrcodegenerator.com. I think the UI is easy to understand, and they have some simple frames that you can use for free. Let me show you what I mean. All you need to do to create your QR code is to drop a link, some text, or a file into their website, and they'll do the rest for you. So I'm going to shamelessly plug the Relay for Life my school is planning for this June by copying that URL and dropping it into the box on the QR code generator website. Just like this. As you can see, they've generated my QR code, and if I want, I can choose from their frames to make it look a little nicer. The second one is my particular favorite. Some of the features of this site require a premium account, which is not something I've really felt compelled to pay for, but if you want features like some of the fancier frames, changing the color, or adding a logo into the code, those features are there for you. When you're finished, you can download a JPEG of your functional code, and you're good to go. Now you can drop it in wherever you want. So what could you use this for in teaching? Well, like you just saw, I'm using it to promote an upcoming event. Stick the code on a poster and put it up around your school so students can scan it with their phones and get taken right to the website. Next month, I'm even going to use it for our student elections to help students access their ballot. I also use it in class to help students access my class website or specific instructions within the Google Classroom. Anything you need to access on the internet can be shared through a QR code. Really cool, right? I really like keeping my classroom organized digitally. My Google Classroom is meticulously organized with topics and emojis to keep materials and assignments all together. The same thing goes for when students come into my class. I've talked in my videos before about how I teach high school art, and if you're not organized, the art classroom can get messy really quickly. One of the ways I like to keep things organized is by using a learning menu to help students keep track of the things they need to accomplish during a class period. This is just a super simple Google slide that lists the things that students should be working on during class, lists other assignments they need to be aware of, and usually has an exemplar or two of other projects that they're working on. I leave this up during the entire class so students can quickly see at a glance what they should be doing. Mine is a bit fancy, and I've created the frames in Photoshop to suit my specific needs, but a basic Google Slides template can also work for your purposes. As you can see, when we look at the right side of my slide, I've listed my learning objective and then a numbered priority list. This way students can follow a checklist to make sure they're getting all the steps of the project finished and using their time wisely. I usually try to make sure I only list the things they could realistically accomplish during the class. That way they can budget their time accordingly. Sometimes I won't use a numbered list and instead give students a choice of things they can work on. This is usually during catch-up days where I'll list the 2 or 3 most recent assignments, and students should prioritize things that they can hand in for a grade. On the left, I have my exemplars at the top. These are pictures of student work from the previous semester, and my goal here is to encourage students to take risks with their designs and be super creative. Below that, I have a dedicated section for sketchbook assignments. My grade 10s complete one prompt every week, and I collect sketchbooks once a month. So in this section, I list all of their sketches for the month, the due date, and I bold the one for the current week so they can track their progress. If you don't have an ongoing assignment like this, you can always include links to other important resources, like a link to the Google Classroom or class website. A QR code would also fit here really nicely, and students could quickly scan it to get any info they need at a glance. So like I said at the beginning of this video, these are designed to be some quick tips that you can implement in under 5 minutes. Polling your students could be a massive video all on its own. But today, I'm going to show you a really quick way that I like to use polls as a starter activity using Nearpod. There are tons of different companies that provide polling software, but I've already talked about Nearpod in a previous video, so I think it's probably the one that we should focus on. I'll post my link to the video on Nearpod in the description, so you can go back and check that out so you can see how to actually set one up. I'm not going to go into detail here. I like to use polls as a way to engage students right at the beginning of class. I'll have the poll question and the code displayed on the projector as students enter the room, so that as they're getting set up, they can quickly answer the question. You can do as many or as few questions as you want, but I like to do just 1 or 2 quick ones at the beginning. They can be tied to your curriculum, or they can be completely random and just be designed to spark conversation with your students. Let me quickly show you how to make one. So here we've created a new Nearpod lesson. It's completely blank right now, so I'm going to click Add Content and Activities. I'll scroll down and select Poll. Now I can add a poll question and the different answer options. As with other types of Nearpod activities, I can also add another media prompt like an image or a video. So let's go for my prompt. Does pineapple belong on a pizza? My answers are going to be simple enough. Yes or no. I click Save, and it adds it to my presentation. I'm happy with that, so I'll click Save and Exit, and then my poll will be ready to go. It gives me a code, and then if I hit the X here, it gives me my question. Does pineapple belong on a pizza? This is the student view. If I use the toggle up here to switch to the teacher view, it'll give me the poll results. I've joined as a test student, so when I choose my result, no, and hit Submit, it should populate here. And as we can see, test student has answered B, and the poll has filled in entirely for the B. 100% of students have said no. If only. I love polls, and I think they're an awesome jumping off point for an interesting discussion and a nice way into your lesson. Have you ever wanted to share a link with your classes, but it was just ridiculously long and way too impractical to actually write down? Then you, my friend, are looking for a URL shortener. There are dozens of URL shortening services out there. Google even used to operate one called goo.gl that discontinued in 2018. That was my service of choice, but I also love bit.ly, or Bitly for short. I use Bitly all the time. It's the best way to shorten a URL to make it easy to share with students or post up around the school. You can change it from the unpronounceable gobbledygook of generated URLs and turn it into something that regular students can remember and understand and even pronounce. My favorite use of shortened URLs is combining it with my class website and my learning menu. For example, my grade 9s are currently working on impressionist self-portraits. It's a fairly complicated project, and it involved a lot of pre-work on my part. We completed a slideshow, went through a bunch of definitions, and even watched a video on how to mix the appropriate skin tone. All of that is way too much to fit on a learning menu slide, but it's perfect for the class website. Enter Bitly. I took the super long URL that was generated by Google Sites and dropped it into Bitly, and it spat out a link that was super easy for me to share with my students and that they might understand off the top of their heads. I even put it on the handout I gave them for the assignment. So instead of having to go to the class website and search through all the assignments until they find the one they're looking for, they can just remember this URL, read it off their handout, or look at it on the learning menu to access a super quick rundown of what the assignment is. All my students have to do is go to bit.ly/VA9impressionism, and all of the information is right there for them at their fingertips. So cool. So how do you make a Bitly link? Let me show you back at my computer here. So how do you make a Bitly link? Well, first you go to bitly.com and create an account. I've never had to create a paid account, but your mileage may vary there. Then you just click on this orange button up here and paste your URL. I'm gonna once again shamelessly plug my school's Relay for Life and drop that URL in here. Then I just click on the orange create at the bottom and it'll give you a URL. So by default, it'll give you a random string for the back end of your short URL, but you can customize it to whatever you want as long as it isn't taken. So I can take my URL here and change the back end to HERH relay. Then I click on save and it's been updated. So now I can just copy it, and if I open it in a new tab, it will take me right to my school's Relay for Life page where I can sign up or make a donation. Very useful, in the same way that QR codes are. And I will often use them in conjunction with a QR code to give the option for people who still don't really understand how to scan the code. So next month, when I create the code to access the ballot for our student elections, I'll also create a bit.ly to go underneath it that leads to the same place, just to give people options. Okay, so I've got one last quick tip for you, and it's all about music. I've got music playing in my class all the time, whenever I'm not giving instruction. It creates a relaxed vibe in the classroom that I really like, and it gives a good audio cue for when I'm trying to get the class's attention. Many people who play music during class will use YouTube, which is fine, but then you have to deal with the buffering and the ads and everything that goes along with that. Instead, I like to use Apple Music. I'm sure Spotify works too, but since I pay for an Apple One subscription, I like to use that whenever possible. Basically, I've created a playlist on my Mac or my phone, and I just add songs to it that I want to play in class. When I was initially setting this playlist up, I let students request songs through Google Forms, and after some quick vetting for language, I would add it to the playlist. Unfortunately, that messed with my recommendations through Apple Music, so now I've implemented a rule that if I don't like a song, it gets deleted from the playlist. Now that we're raising money for Relay for Life, students can even make a small donation to request the next song, or even make a larger donation to add a song to the playlist permanently. It's been a fun way to get introduced to music that I wouldn't have heard otherwise. Another cool feature of Apple Music is that I can publish the playlist on my profile, so students can search for it in Apple Music and find it to listen to on their own time. I had a student last year who told me she used the playlist every morning as her pump up music while she did her makeup. Not what I originally envisioned, but still cool nonetheless. One final note. If you use Apple Music to make your playlist but you have a PC while you're at work, you can still use Apple Music on the web. All you have to do is sign in with your Apple ID at iCloud.com, and then you can access the Apple Music web interface and still play your playlist. The interface can be a bit buggy at times, but it is functional. The PC I use in my classroom at school is basically only used for playing my playlist and showing my learning menu, so I can confirm this works. So that's it for my top 5 tech tips. Like I said, the goal is that you should be able to get these working for you in under 5 minutes, so you don't have to deal with the time commitment of those larger tech tools that I've been talking about in previous videos. Do you have a favorite tip that I didn't talk about today? Should I do more videos like this? Drop a comment below with your suggestions. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for regular updates. I post new videos every Wednesday. I hope everyone's been having an awesome week. Summer vacation is almost here. See you next time.